shouting at you. I say, اطلع يا كمان hill, go up high our moon, the moon of Palestine. طول الكرة الأرضية, make the whole universe, like this. ما خلقنا لنعيش بذل. We were not born to be live in humanity. خلقنا نعيش بحرية. We were born to live in freedom. Now you like the song more. Now it's interesting. Welcome everyone. We're about to start. First of all, I want to acknowledge the rightful owners of the land where we're meeting today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations. We pay respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Land when sovereignty was never ceded.
How you doing? Good to see you.
Always was, always will be. Always was, always will be. Today marks 197 days of ongoing slaughter and genocide of our people, our children, our men, our women, our elderly, the sick in Gaza by the Zionist criminal regime. Every week for the past 197 days, regime. $1 billion, $1 billion that have been disclosed in partnerships and deals with Albert systems. We demand this government, we demand ALBO to cut its ties with the Zionist criminal regime, to stop arming Israel, to stop being complicit in the genocide of our people. We will not accept lip service. We will not accept your repentance, ALBO. It's either now or never that you put a stop to your complicity in the genocide. Now or never. We will not accept your apologies when it's all over. We will not accept your offerings of blessed Eids and Merry Christmases in Palestine while you're so actively, willingly, and happily supporting and arming your friends to slaughter Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank and Jerusalem and across the circle of Palestine. It's hard to kind of begin without reflecting on the fact that our people are not only being oppressed in Gaza and killed in Gaza right now. Remember, colonial, oppressive regimes do not spare some of us while they kill the rest of us. They kill us all equally everywhere across our land. In the past few weeks, the West Bank have been suffering a campaign of systematic settler attack sponsored by the Israeli Zionist regime. People in the West Bank, in Nablus, in Tulkarem, in Jenin, in Ramallah, in Bethlehem, in Khalil, everywhere, have been at the receiving end of Jewish settlers, militias, violence, and terrorism. Make no mistake, these people dressed in civilian clothing are as terrorists as their government and their soldiers are. A few hours ago, more than 14 Palestinians, 5 of them are brothers, 5 have been killed in the Ain Shams refugee camp in Tulkarem. 5 of them. Ain Shams refugee camp has been suffering of more than 3 days of ongoing militia and military attacks from the Zionist regime. Reports have shown that what's happening in Nur Shams refugee camp right now is considered the most destructive, the most violent invasion of a refugee camp in the West Bank since the Jenin refugee camp in 2002. In the past 72 hours, more than 24 Palestinians have been killed, including a child named Qais, whose father is a Palestinian paramedic. He was transferring injuries from Ain Shams refugee camp when he was at the hospital and saw his son's dead body laying in a hospital while he was trying to save lives. This is a criminal, evil regime that must cease to exist. In the past 197 days, the UN Human Rights reported that more than 43,000 Palestinians have been killed. 15,000 children have been killed. If we are to hold a funeral for every Palestinian child per day, we will be holding funerals for 47 years.
Shame!
In the past few days, the massacres, the atrocities of Al-Shifa Hospital have been unveiled in front of our own eyes. Mass graves of women, children, elderly, the sick, the medical doctors, the healthcare workers, the journalists have been found with children and women and elderly with hands zip-tied, executed, and buried in mass graves. Should we allow this to continue? Should we be silent while this government continues to arm Israel? So what are we demanding today? Stop arming Israel! Stop arming Israel!
Stop arming Israel!
Stop arming Israel!
Stop arming Israel!
Abo, you can hide!
Ever, you can hide!
We charge you with genocide!
We charge you with genocide!
Abo, you can hide!
Ever, you can hide!
We charge you with genocide!
We charge you with genocide!
And now we have our first speaker, Robert Martin. Robert has been a Palestinian activist, pro-Palestinian activist since 2014, dedicating himself to bringing light to the plight of the Palestinian people. His activism has led him to visit Palestine on multiple occasions, providing him with first-hand understanding of the challenges faced by those living under the occupation. Please give a warm welcome to Robert!
The applause doesn't feel right, considering we're here for pretty bad news continually. I wonder why the fuck we're here. Why are we here? Palestine was stolen by Israel. Gaza has 80% refugees from what is now Israel. There is a live genocide going on as we speak, live on TV. But we're here fighting for Palestinian rights. How does that work? We should be ashamed. You guys will make change. You guys are actually out here doing something. Most people are at home thinking about it. Most people say what they would have done in the past as they changed the channel on the TV. You guys should be very proud of yourselves. It's a hard job, but you guys will make change. I remember starting to come to the rallies in 2014 and there was none of this business. There was no trucks, there was no speakers. So the guys that set this up, well done. Seriously, well done. I could sit here and tell you everything you know about Palestine, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to talk to you guys about a racist person. That was me. That had no idea about Palestine. But the story you'll hear makes it even more embarrassing to me. My best friend, my business partner, my best man at my wedding's Palestinian. For 10 years he told me about Palestine, the atrocities, the murders, the colonialism, the fascists, the racists, the elitists. I'd go home and watch the news and Peter Hitchner would tell me that Israel is defending itself and that every Palestinian was a terrorist.
Shame!
I didn't believe my friend. That's how powerful it is. So I'm not really going to speak to any of you today because you already converted. I want to speak to those that are on the fence, those that throw horrible words at terrorism, anti-Semites. Fuck you. You don't know what you're talking about. 2014 came along. Israel started killing Palestinians, killing children with aircraft. Palestinians don't have any aircraft, no boats, no army, no dome, no killing kids. My Palestinian friend is here today. You may know him. He's quite an advocate. And the reason I'm going to tell you his name is it shows the power of the media. Nasser Mashdi. Nasser, I'm sorry, for 10 years you told me what was happening and I turned a blind eye. I was too lazy to do homework. Subliminally, I was a racist. When 2014 came along, I walked into Nasser's office and he was crying. And not just crying, wailing. And I said, what's going on? What's wrong? He said, when the children look like your children, Rob, it's hard to do anything. I didn't see kids the way I see my kids, because I was racist. I assumed they were all terrorists. And again, Nasser, I'm sorry. And to all the Palestinians, I'm sorry. I had a post on the internet when I started to find things out, and two things happened. One, because I'm white, people believed me and shared my posts. And the anti-terrorism unit came to my office. And I started to realise that something wasn't right. I then had people say, you've got no idea, Rob, you never. I said, right. Well, I went. And what I saw, took forever. And if any of you get an opportunity to do this, you must do it. Don't go to Bali, don't go to Fiji, go to Palestine. Best place in the world. I went to Palestine, I went to Allenby Bridge, and guess what? That's not Palestine. I wasn't even in Palestine yet. And these guys with guns on the side here, jeans and white t-shirts got on. I really wondered, we'd never seen this before. They searched everybody's bags, made everybody get off the bus. Not me though, I was still in the bus. This is before we got into Palestine. These Palestinians trying to get into their own country. Dehumanised. When we come home, we get welcome back on Palestine. I got off the bus and headed towards the border patrol. I got off the bus and they said, hello sir, why don't you come to the front of the line? I saw these families, elderly, lined up, down, beating on home. And again, they welcomed me because I was white, rather than the indigenous people going home. I did not go in front of them, I waited. And I was shocked with what I saw, the dehumanisation. And I've spoken to Palestinians, the elderly ones, that don't want to go home because they don't want to experience that. I went to a place called Berlin, and I know I mispronounced that, but that's as good as it gets. I went to visit a friend of mine, I had spoken to him on the internet. He's from Berlin, we're having coffee, cigarette, the way they do. We had a phone call, and he said, I've got to go. I said, where are you going? He said, something's happened up to the fence in the wall. I was in the front of the car, driving up. We get towards an area where the kids play. There's only one playground. And there was a Jeep. 4 soldiers, M16s. Trying to take the play. Now, the only reason they're taking the play equipment is not to go and repair it or fix it. It's because they want to intimidate, and they also want the Palestinians to respond. When they do respond, they experience the Palestinian courage. The Palestinians were in front of me, and they wouldn't because they said, no, I'm going to protect. I didn't know these guys. ran. And I later found out the only way ran and the soldiers they were going to shoot me. They didn't leave. And we all know they probably would have done. After that experience, I went to an area called Sheikh Jarrah, just out of Jerusalem, or it's part of Jerusalem. I went to visit a guy called Mohammed Kirk. You may have heard of him now. He's been voted the top 100 most in the world. Also named and terrorist. Well, I went to his house because I didn't believe I read in the paper. Right. Half his house. There's a 40 of this. I saw these Israeli and all Arab, predominantly Arab. All of them Arab. Call them Arabs. These young kids on this are young Palestinian, and I went over and I said, you know what's going on? The long and the short of the story is, they pretty much attacked me, called me Arab. I said, how many Palestinians have you got to? Why do I talk to those Jews? They're terrorists. They called me a leftist if I had a number. I mention this because the kids in Israel. They're either taught about Palestinians that are pretty simple terrorists, or they don't exist. There's no in the middle. There's no in the middle. None. I witnessed a house demolition in Sheikh Jarrah. One of the worst things I've ever seen. They do it just as the kids come home from school. And I can see kids here, 10, 13, 14. Palestinians have a lot of people in their houses, and the house was demolished. Not only was it demolished, there would have been 150 soldiers around to intimidate anybody else. I've got the footage. You can Google it and you'll find it. I had my hair cut done a few times, and I really liked this guy. And it took probably the third time I asked, you know, what sort of experience do you have with Israelis? I mean, his was a pretty basic one. His cousin was his apprentice, and his apprentice was shot in the head out in front of his father.
Shame.
Everything I'm telling you, you can find on the internet. It's really easy to find. You just have to look. I read a lot on the internet, and I came across the Hasbara Guide and the Israeli Project. You might be familiar with these. He's had a right. Every time you use the word Palestinian, you use the word terrorist in front. You will not name that Palestinian. They will be nameless. When an Israeli Jew is killed, they're murdered. An Israeli Jew is murdered. They're a loving father of 4 or 5. They'll tell you what they do for a job. They won't tell you they probably served in the army, though. I couldn't believe that that was actually written down. And I remembered Peter Hitchner used that thing. Our politicians used it as well. Israel has the right to defend itself. No, it fucking doesn't. It's an occupation. They didn't resist because of those very small stories I told you. In fact, I'm going to tell you one more thing. There was a small child, my daughter, she was run over by a settler. She was killed. Her friend, brain damaged. I went to visit his family. I was down to organisation to be done with whole signatures again. As I went to visit the family, this is what they live with. This is what they live with. How dare anybody have a go at them for resisting? October 7 was the beginning of the end for Israel. The common world talks about Palestine. There's killing going on. A ceasefire Israel will keep stealing. Hamas's ideology will never be defeated because they want their country back and they will get it. Look forward to the day that we're all here and we're celebrating the decolonisation of Israel. I look forward to the day that we are here and we're celebrating the freedom from the river to the sea, with equal rights to everybody being there. And you guys would have been a part of it. So well done to you. Free Palestine.
You'll see people going around with these boxes. These are donations from Palestine, Melbourne. Please QR code that you can. Free Palestine, Melbourne has been essential and vital to the weekly rallies that we've been doing. So please, if you can contribute, do it. Do it. Australia is a colonial beast just as the US and Israel are. And right now, we're in the belly of the beast. So what will we be saying today? From the belly of the beast, we want justice, we want peace. From the belly of the beast,
We want justice, we want peace.
from the belly of the beast,
We want justice, we want peace.
from the belly of the beast,
We want justice, we want peace.
free, free,
Palestine!
free, free,
Palestine!
free, free.
Palestine!
It's hard to reflect on Robert's speech without remembering that it will take us decades and decades to speak of every atrocity that the Zionist criminal regime has committed in the past 197 days alone. Not the past 76 years, the past 197 days alone. Francesca Albanese, the special UN rapporteur for the occupied Palestinian territories, has said that this is the result of 76 years of a state drunk on impunity from the international community. She said the ICJ will need, the International Criminal Court of Justice, will need decades and decades to look into the crimes of the state of Israel in the past 197 days alone. Everywhere you look across Palestine, oppression is being tailored according to your ID. Oppression is being tailored according to what, if you're a Gaza resident, or if you're a West Bank resident, or a refugee camp, or a Jerusalem, or a Palestinian resident of the state of Israel. In the illegal pariah state of Israel. Shame. Look around you. Look around you. The majority of you are not even Palestinians. We are here from all different walks of lives, from all different backgrounds, from all different ages, fighting not just for Palestine, but for the humanity of ourselves and our people. Remember that they're trying to exhaust you. They're trying to exhaust you. Will you be tired and exhausted from fighting back against injustice and oppression? Will you stop fighting back for Palestine? Good. Because before you're fighting for Palestine, you are fighting for your own humanity. As I look around, there's children as young as 5 and 6 and 7 years old. There's more than 200 Palestinian children as young as 9 years old being locked right now in Israeli prisons. My own cousin, last week, a 15-year-old child, was kidnapped from his own house after being beaten by a dozen Israeli soldiers. My aunt was beaten by a dozen Israeli soldiers for trying to stand against their oppression and against them kicking and hitting her child. And yet, we find the political elites of the world, mainly the US, Australia, Canada, Europe, Germany and France, claiming the need to protect the democratic Western values of humanity that Israel has been showcasing to the world for the past 76 years and 197 days. Remind yourself that Palestine is the only defense line that the world has against Zionism. If Palestine falls, the rest of the world will fall. Now let's welcome our second speaker, Declan. Declan Ferber-Gillick is a center-oriented, I butchered that one, playwright, political organizer, trades unionist, a member of Media, Entertainment and Arts Alliance at Trade Unionists for Palestine, and is a staunch supporter for the Palestinian cause and has been on the front lines since the get-go. Welcome, Declan!
Thanks very much, Dana. So my name is Declan Ferber-Gillick, and I am a Central Islander man from Barntra Alice Springs, Central Australia. And I come to you today as a proud inheritor of a tradition of Aboriginal struggle for self-determination, as an inheritor of a political tradition that fought for and won major institutions and community development initiatives in my home country. And I come from a lineage of campaigners, linguists, community organisers and political activists that is alive and well today, and that is the Aboriginal family political background from which I come and from which I now stand here on Wurundjeri country, dedicated to the struggle for the liberation and self-determination and sovereignty of all Aboriginal peoples and all peoples around the world. Now, the fight to free Palestine, the fight against Zionism and occupation has been, like the fight on this continent, a long one. And we are 6 months into this particular round. And with the way things are going for Israel, it may well be the final round, as the comrade before said. Because if we don't count the mass slaughter of tens of thousands of innocent people as a legitimate military endeavour, which we cannot and which we must not do, then Israel has almost nothing to show of true military or national or territorial value for 6 months of brutal, heinous war crimes. The Zionist entity has not secured its military objectives. It has not defeated Hamas. It has not seized the Gaza Strip. And perhaps this is because the Zionist entity's army seems to be made up largely of disorganised, psychopathic, gap-year-aged dum-dums. That's right. Who spend their time posting TikToks of themselves disgracing women's underwear and disgracing and breaking children's toys and blowing kisses while they are obliterating universities and public infrastructure rather than observing the most basic of military discipline. Not only this, but there is a growing segment of the Israeli population that quite rightly wants Netanyahu's blood. The Zionist entity has isolated and alienated itself in the eyes of the international community, and even in the eyes of some Western leaders who are beginning to withhold economic and military support for the very reasonable fear of being prosecuted for their own complicit role in Israel's slaughter. Albo, Penny, Richard, Jacinta, Tim, we and the rest of the world are looking at you. Now, I've gotten up here today to yet again proclaim that Israel is losing this war, and I further proclaim that Zionism is on its last legs. But I'm just probably some kind of crazy activist who, according to the mainstream media, has no idea what he's protesting about, needs to get a job, or possibly even be deported. So don't take my word for it. Instead, take the word of Israeli journalists like Shame Levinson, who are now writing pieces in Haaretz with titles like "Saying What Can't Be Said, Israel Has Been Defeated, a Total Defeat," from which I will now quote the opening paragraph. Quote, "We've lost. Truth must be told. The inability to admit it encapsulates everything you need to know about Israel's individual and mass psychology. There's a clear, sharp, predictable reality that we should begin to fathom, to process, to understand, and to draw conclusions from for the future. It's no fun to admit that we've lost, so we lie to ourselves." I didn't write that. It was written by an Israeli journalist. Now, firmly, comrades, right now Israel may be the weakest it's ever been, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. While it may be true that this is Israel's final round, the logic of Zionism upon which Israel's ethno-state is based does not allow for retreat. It does not allow for surrender, so this is not a round that will be ending anytime soon. The Zionist entity is facing international ostracization, civil unrest, a crippled economy, and retaliatory deterrence from Iran after they bombed Iran's consulate in Damascus, an attack which killed not only Iranian officials but Syrian civilians. Shame. But despite all this, the Zionist entity wants war, demands war, needs war. Its economy and its entire society is based on war. And we know that unless we force them to stop, our governments will keep providing political cover and arming the entity to the teeth. That's exactly what Labor has done with its $917 million Elbit contract. Shame. So, comrades, what is to be done? Firstly, we must keep up the fight. But importantly, as our historic movement progresses well into its 6th month, we must prepare to fight for the long term. That means we must understand where our power lies. Our power does not lie in our individuality or in the ideas that we hold in our atomized independent skulls. Our power does not lie in interpersonal attacks draped in the language of politics. Our power does not lie in sectarianism and unprincipled factional squabbling. Our power does not lie in any one figurehead of the movement or in our individual racial or ethnic identities. Our power lies in the ability of regular, everyday people like you and me to learn from history, to accurately analyse our situation, and to collectively and consistently organise around a coherent political line so as to bring more and more people into mass formation. And we will only be able to do this if we treat one another and our movement and the goal of freeing Palestine in a way that is serious, deadly serious. Our power lies in being able to consistently carry out the day-to-day humdrum work of sending emails, planning meetings, putting up posters, talking to our colleagues, managing group chats, printing flyers, holding forums, and talking to workers. Our movement is not just one day of action or 1 or 2 or 3 pickets, boycotts or petitions. It's not about just one walkout or one school strike. When a boxer prepares for a fight, does she prepare just one almighty knockout punch or 2 quick steps, a duck, a left jab and a right hook? No, she and her team study, design and develop hundreds of motions, movements and blows, hundreds of blocks, defensive shapes and formations. A boxer commits... Okay. First, a boxer commits to memory in her mind and in her body scores of sequences ready to explode. And she trains methodically for months, years and decades, building strength and capacity. She knows that it is only a command of power that will win her the fight. Ultimately, it is workers of all nationalities who fight in wars, workers who die in wars, and workers who must labour to produce the machinery, the weapons and the planes that are used to fight in wars. It is even workers who sew the uniforms that are deployed in wars. It is workers whose exploitation fuels the economies that are drained to fund war. It is workers who labour as medics to repair the bodies of those who have been brutalised, and it is children orphaned by war who grow up to work in economies controlled by the ruling classes that further perpetuate and develop those wars. And so we at Trade Unions for Palestine believe it is ordinary working people doing the unglamorous, tedious, day after day work, piece by piece, to build the formations that can confront this war machine and bring it to its knees. Now, from 8 a.m. on May 18th at Moonee Valley Racecourse, Trade Unions for Palestine will be holding a protest outside the Labor Party State Conference. I urge you to bring everyone you know, come along, raise your voice. A number of speakers from across the Palestinian movement and the trade union movement will be levelling ferocious and relentless criticisms of the Labor Party, who, it must be said, has been one of Israel's key backers since the inception of the Zionist entity in 1948. Shame. Comrades, I'm going to leave it there for today. Thank you to Free Palestine Melbourne, the Palestine movement, for having me to speak. Thank you to all the speakers. Free Palestine. Long live international solidarity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Declan. That was an amazing speech. What we have been learning in the past 197 days is that oppressors and regimes and systems of oppression sustain each other, they maintain each other, and they help each other to survive. But we have also learned is that oppressed people around the world, no matter what their nationality, religion, race is, stand for each other and uplift the voices of each other in the struggles of one another. Now welcome our third speaker, Hiba. Hiba is an Eritrean Sudanese activist and a Unimel for Palestine organizer and one of my best friends, so welcome Hiba to the stage!
I want to acknowledge that we're standing on the Orange land of the full nation, and I want to pay my respects to elders past and present, and I want to extend that respect to all Indigenous people here with us today. Sovereignty has never ceded, this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Dana has mentioned that I'm Eritrean Sudanese, and I just want to kind of position myself first. Like, I was born and raised in Libya. I lived through the Arab Spring in Libya. I lived through the war. I lost family, friends. I've lived in refugee camps, and I know what that feels like. I know what spending 1 year in a refugee camp, being cut off from everyone that you love, feels like. Sudan has been at war for 370 days. 370 days. For 370 days, I've lost my house, I've lost my family in Sudan. People in Sudan have been displaced for 370 days. People have been experiencing gender-based violence for 370 days. People have been starving in Sudan for 370 days. Women, men, children, the elderly, the disabled have been experiencing horrific conditions for 370 days. Recently, when we celebrated Eid, I remember it doesn't feel the same. I spent the whole day worrying, calling family back home, trying to understand what's happening. I couldn't get in touch with some of them, and so we just spent the whole day praying, making dua, that we get to hear their voices by the end of the day. My auntie's husband is stranded in Sudan, and the bombing happened. And she could not celebrate Eid. Her kids could not celebrate Eid. My whole family could not celebrate Eid. And that's the reality. For 370 days, our joys, our celebrations, they've not been the same. And they won't be. Until Sudan is freed, it won't be. Since the 15th of April, Sudan has been suffering. A war started by the Sudanese armed forces and the rapid support forces in a struggle for power resulted in unprecedented violence against civilians. Displacement, destruction, and violence, resulting in one of the world's biggest hunger crises. I want to stress that while it marks 370 days since Sudan has been at war, this has been going on for a lot longer. The war in Darfur has been going on since 2003, specifically towards the Masalid and Fur tribes. But the suffering for people in Sudan, the suffering of black people is invisible to the world. People normalize our suffering. That is why when they see a post talking about Sudan or about any other country in Africa, it's just like it's another day. So what that they're starving? Okay, I thought starvation in Africa was a normal thing. So what if there's war? So what if there's, civil disobedience? It's normal. It's not normal. It is not normal to live in war for 370 days. It's not normal. I lived through it for 365 days. I don't tell you it's not normal. Not knowing if you're going to be speaking to your dad or to your brother or to your mom or to your auntie tomorrow, it's not normal. Losing friends to gender-based violence is not normal. Our suffering is not normal. And it can be normalized. We've been showing up for Palestine for the last 7 months. I want people to show up for Sudan too. We speak about how our suffering is globalized, about how solidarity here in Australia with our Indigenous brothers and sisters is important the same way that we're standing in solidarity with people in Palestine. That's why it's also important to stand in solidarity with people in Sudan. I want to speak a bit about who benefits from this war. You might ask, since there's two groups in Sudan who are fighting each other who are Sudanese, regional actors, namely the UAE and Saudi Arabia and Israel, benefit from the war in Sudan. Does that sound similar to you? Does that sound familiar? Who benefits from the war in Palestine? The UAE steals gold from Sudan, and that is why the suffering of Sudanese people, the killing, the displacement, the chaos, it's good for them. Israel provides intelligence to both sides in Sudan, benefiting from the destruction. They trial their intelligence in Sudan, and then they use it in Gaza. They use it in Palestine. I want to echo what Dana has said. She said that it doesn't matter the religion or the race of your oppressor. Oppressors will always be oppressors, and we will not stop until all oppressors are gone. I want to give you some statistics, and I want you to keep it in mind. As you leave today, I want you to remember these statistics. 15 million people lack access to healthcare in Sudan right now. 19 million children are out of school. 10.7 million are displaced. 6.7 million people are at risk of gender-based violence, mainly women. We have the largest displaced population internally and externally. So as we stand here today, and as you leave the rally, I want you to remember these numbers. And I want you to remember it's not normal. Along with a few Sudanese comrades in Melbourne, we started Southern Sudan, the Voice of Sudan. We are a group of Sudanese diaspora in NAM who want to raise the voices of Sudanese people. We want to raise awareness. We've been at the front lines of Palestinian advocacy in Melbourne. I will want people to join our struggle too. I want to see the same numbers that I see here at our event. We'll be doing actions, fundraisers, and many other events. So I want you to pull up your phones and look us up on Instagram, South of Sudan. That's SAWTALSUDAN, the Voice of Sudan. Remember, we're not free until everyone is free. We're not free here until people in Palestine are free. We're not free until people in Sudan are free. We're not free until people in Congo are free. We're not free until people in Papua New Guinea are free. None of us are free until all oppressed people are free. Thank you. Free, free Palestine!
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 Isn't she amazing? Give her another round of applause. And I'm not being biased, but she's my best friend. Just so you know. Like Hiba says, none of us is free until all of us are free. Remember. here for all oppressed people around the world, from Sudan to Congo to Yemen to Ethiopia to every oppressed people around the world. We stand for justice, we stand for peace, we stand for the liberation of every oppressed people around the world. We stand for humanity. Now, before we start marching, I have a few announcements I want to make. We are short on marshals, so if you find it in yourself to march, please, to be a marshal, please head to the intersection of Latrobe and Swanston. You will see marshals with blue tags on their arms. Please approach them. We need marshals today. On May 12th, we will be holding the Nakba Rally, the commemoration of 76 years of ongoing, non-stop oppression and genocide of our people. So we want you all in your thousands and your millions to be right here, marching, taking the streets of Melbourne, making our message clear. We will not stop until Palestine is free, until occupation is ended, until every oppressed people are free. From the river to the sea,
Palestine will be free.
from the river to the sea,
Palestine will be
are
free.
you ready to march? No. Are you ready to march? I want to see every one of you at Parliament steps because we still have amazing speakers. We still have our amazing Palestinian speaker, Dr. Salah, who will be speaking about oppression and the systematic targeting of Palestinian healthcare workers. So make sure that you go to the Parliament steps and you stay there until the rally is over. Now, Amin, if you look at Amin, please scan the QR code for the Boycott Divestment and Sanction movement. Please check if your super is complicit in the genocide of our Palestinian brothers and sisters in Palestine. Scan the QR code. Make sure you send your super an email demanding they end their complicity and profiting off of the genocide of our people right now, right here. From the river to the sea,
Palestine will be free.
from the river to the sea,
Palestine will be free.
from the belly of the beast, from the belly of the beast,
We want justice, we want peace.
from the belly of the beast.
We want justice, we want peace.
Now march, take it to the streets of Melbourne, let everyone hear you. Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine.
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine.
In ourselves and in our millions!
We are all Palestinians.
Everyone start marching. Marshals, please head to the intersection of Latrobe and Swanston. Let me see you all at Parliament steps. Free, free Palestine.
Free Palestine!
Free, free, free Palestine.
Free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine.
Free Palestine!
Free, free, free Palestine.
Free Palestine!
In our thousands, in our millions.
We are all Palestinians!
In our thousands, in our millions.
We are all Palestinians!
This one's for Hash. The people united.
We'll never be defeated!
Why are we marching? Come on. The people united.
We'll never be defeated!
The people united.
We'll never be defeated!
The people united.
We'll never be defeated! The people united will never be defeated!
Hi, how you going?
Yeah, I think most school holidays they'll have like
No more fire!
They look like the real dangers you see at nightclubs of people using war. But there's nothing in there, is there? Yeah. Did we take a wrong turn?
I'm pretty clear how the democratic our system is. Like most people support like
There you go.
Keep coming up the sides, make a circle. We come out every Sunday to cause disruption, to bring awareness to the genocide in Gaza. The genocide is no longer just in Gaza. If you read the news this morning, 25 people were murdered in Tucson in the West Bank. The governments and the mainstream media around the world are trying to distract us from the genocide happening in Palestine. We will not be distracted. We will not rest. We will continue to raise our voices until Palestine is free. Are you ready to shut it down?
The state of Gaza! The Zionist agenda! The Israeli occupation! The open closing!
Please, I want you to listen very carefully. This week, we have very special guests. And brothers and sisters, our families with us. We have a Sab'awi family here. They just newly arrived from Gaza. Alhamdulillah, they made it outside. And we are here, they are here between us. We are all one family. And the mainstream media lately has been absolutely savage on the community and some members in the community. It's a shame. And I just want to tell them one message. We are the community, the Palestinian community, and the supporters of Palestine. We all of us, young and old, males and females, everybody, we stand with Palestine. We all and also we have the Murad family that arrived with us as well. So today we are blessed from the people. We are blessed to be here with the people from Gaza. So this is a blessing that we're going to count on. Also, please allow me to say, and I want you guys to film this because I want this to go to every Zionist that is watching us, that is after us. We are standing with the people of Palestine. We stand with the people of Gaza. We stand with the people that colonized and after their freedom until everybody they get freedom. But the most important one, we stand with the resistance movement in every country that exists. We stand with the resistance movement in Palestine. We stand with the resistance movement in Yemen. We stand with the resistance movement in Iran. We stand with the resistance movement in Iraq. We stand with the resistance movement in Libya. We stand with the resistance movement that is destroying Zionism. We are not going to be ashamed or silent for who we stand with. We are proudly stand with the resistance movement that will dismantle Zionism. It frees Zionists to go back to the whatever European hell they came from. And with that, we want to say, and say it loud and clear, the chant that they hate. And by the way, the chant from the river to the sea recently has been flagged by the Congress as a hate speech and as anti-Semite. They can take that. So for them we say, hungry but you go. Palestine will be free! Palestine will be free! From the river to the sea! Palestine will be free! From the river to the sea! Palestine
He came to us, Salafi. Salafi
Tomorrow I will be posting the video of this landing, and I will be demanding a police investigation to hold the perpetrator accountable, and I want every single one of you to amplify my voice for justice.
Control.
and like
Yeah.
having disagreements. But it's like if you can't come together and like try and build consensus, it's just like how do we
So we're not sure what we're going to do with that in relation to that, because it's a fairly kind of prominent number too.
it's fairly what?
It's a fairly prominent number. So is your stuff also a lot to do with the conflict that I witnessed around Christmas time, where there was people within the group who wanted to do more radical stuff?
There was a bit of that, and then like there was stuff about like social media page posting something about like it was like queer awareness sort of day or something, and like so some of the conservative bosoms like we can't be posting about other cultures, especially that stuff that I agree with. But I was like,
Yeah, we've had it as well.
and I was just like,
We've had that.
when you visited polls without telling the rest of the country,
Free Palestine!
it's just really big.
Look,
Free Palestine!
but still within the
Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! In our thousands, in our millions! In our thousands, in our millions! From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
The amount of people just calling each other out and like,
Yeah, totally. Try and stream this speech.
Gaza! 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 Gaza!
Okay, we're going to do a little call and response. So I'm going to name something, and you're going to tell me that it's not a target, alright? So, doctors, not a target. Nurses, not a target. Midwives, not a target. Not a target. Doctors, nurses, midwives, not a target. Ambos, patients, hospitals, not a target. Hospitals,
doctor that will be speaking about the healthcare workers in Palestine. Since a Shifa hospital got invaded, there's more than 1,000 doctors, nurses, paramedics, healthcare workers, and journalists that have been gone, missing, that we do not know anything about. Are doctors a target? Are nurses a target? Is Palestine a target? From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Dr. Salah Murtaja is a Palestinian-Australian specialist dentist and a casual lecturer at the University of Melbourne, aka the University of Genocide. Dr. Salah, originally from Gaza, is a passionate advocate for the Palestinian cause and the Palestinian sovereignty on our entire land of Palestine, from the river to the sea. Welcome, Dr. Salah!
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! From the river to the sea! From the sea to the river! Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, peace be upon you all, dear brothers and sisters. Thank you for the very kind introduction. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather today and pay my respect to their elders, past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. Just as Palestine has always been and always will be Palestinian land, this land always was and always will be Aboriginal land. I would also like to acknowledge and thank each and every single one of you for continuously showing up in solidarity with the Palestinian people day in and day out, no matter what. During the extreme weather conditions, on long weekends, while fasting, and even on Eid Day. I am proud to be among you. The Palestinian people thank you, and Palestine thanks you. You will all go down in the history book as true legends who stood by the oppressed until the eventual and very soon liberation of the entire state land. We will all celebrate and pray at Al-Aqsa soon, inshallah. When I was first asked to address you today, I thought to myself, what else is left to be said? After all, it's been 197 days of continuous slaughter of innocent men, women, and children. More than 6 months since the beginning of one of the most atrocious genocides in modern history. The Zionists attempt to erase Palestine and eradicate the Palestinian cause. Firstly, by signing a peace treaty with Egypt back in the 70s, followed by another one with Jordan in the 90s, and finally by multiple normalizations with Gulf and North African Arab states most recently. But did they succeed? Did they succeed? No, they did not. And that's thanks to you, all of you. 27 weeks of continuous, untiring worldwide protests and demands have reignited the just Palestinian cause in the heart of the entire free world. This did come at a great and a massive cost, of course. More than 24,000 martyrs and almost 77,000 more injured. We all here heard about the Algerian War of Independence that lasted for over 7.5 years and offered more than 1.5 million martyrs. We also know about the Vietnamese War and the massive number of casualties. Liberation comes at a cost. An occupation force will never hand the land back voluntarily. We know that our martyrs are not dead, they are alive by the promise of Allah. We do mourn and grieve because we are all humans. We are angry and disgusted by the hypocrisy of the governments of the so-called free world we live in. Now, shame. Let's agree on two simple yet very important facts. One, Palestine is not only the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Palestine extends from the Jordan River in the east to the Mediterranean Sea in the west. And from the river to the sea, and from Ras al Naqura in the far north to the Negev Desert, and al-Rashrash, or what they call Eilat, in the southernmost region. Number two, the genocide against the Palestinians did not start 6 months ago. The Zionist regime has been committing systematic ethnic cleansing and mass murder for the past 76 years. Now, some say that the Nakba, which means catastrophe in Arabic, happened on the 15th of May, 1948. And while this might be true, I believe that the term continuous or ongoing Nakba offers a more accurate framework to understand the Palestinian cause and the Palestinian people's suffering as a still emerging and unfolding phenomenon. I do not intend to provide you with a news report. We all watch Al Jazeera after all, right? Nor am I here to give you a lecture on history or geopolitics. So, and without further ado, I would like to talk to you today about what is it like to be Palestinian from a personal perspective. And I'll try and be as precise and quick as possible. I was born in Kuwait. My father and mother were born in Kuwait. Most of my uncles were born in Kuwait, and aunts, of course. My parental grandfather and maternal grandmother, they died in Kuwait. Now, we are not special in that sense, right? A lot of people are born, live, and die outside their homelands, and we were not refugees either. My grandfather was a math teacher in Gaza before World War II, which is before the establishment of the Zionist regime on our land. He taught at a refugee school, but left Gaza in the 50s and was one of the first generation of Palestinian teachers that established the basis of contemporary education. Why am I saying this? I mean, at the end of the day, probably all of us, most of us had the same experience. Being from Gaza, the family, and most, if not all Gazans, for that matter, did not have any passports. Instead, we were provided with Egyptian travel documents for Palestinian refugees, used as IDs, and to facilitate transiting through Egypt. These documents do not allow re-entry to Egypt without applying to a visa. They also do not give the right to reside or work there. Freedom of movement is out of the question. Anyone who held or still holds one of these documents is considered, in effect, a stateless person. Now, this propelled my father to immigrate here after the Gulf War. My uncles followed suit and scattered all over the world. The tragic irony is that one of my uncles is American, another one is Canadian, another one is New Zealander, while my father and younger uncle are Australians. We all hold different citizenships, yet the thing that unites us, aside from our bloodline, is the love of our land, and that despite not having Palestinian IDs, we are all Palestinians. in our thousands, in our millions. Now, we spent some time here before returning to the Middle East, where I did my schooling and basic university training. Obtaining Western citizenships provided us with the freedom of movement and opened an entire world of possibilities that was previously unimaginable. My father did not have to stand in front of embassies for hours at a time, only to be told, we just clocked off, come back tomorrow, anymore. We were able to finally visit Palestine as foreign tourists. This was the year 2000, merely 2 months before the great second Intifada. And I'll tell you what, we did not spare a place, right? We were starving to see our land. We went to Al-Quds, Jerusalem, Nablus, Hebron, Ramallah, Anabta, where my mom is from, Akka, Haifa, Yafa, you name it. And we did spend the heavenly 6 days in Gaza, where I'm from. We left and the Intifada started, which lasted for 5 years. Fast forward to October the 7th, about the year 2017, where I decided to visit Palestine for a second time after 17 years. I was living in Jordan back then, and for those of you who don't know, Jordan borders the occupied Palestinian land from the east. Now, shout out to the beautiful people of Jordan who've been marching constantly for the past 6 months. And you might have heard the chants in our march, Amman. Amman is the capital of Jordan. Anyway, the regime in Jordan has been shamefully arresting protesters and peaceful activists ever since the lunatic genocide began. I entered through the King Hussein border crossing and witnessed firsthand the humiliating treatment Palestinians are subjected to. As an Australian, I cleared customs smoothly, but my name is Salah, right? I'm not a Chris or a David. With all the love and respect to all the Chris's and Davids here today. I was told to have a seat and an assigned officer will take care of you shortly. I was called into an office to meet a senior female officer. The interrogation lasted for 15 minutes. I was asked questions like, why did you come? Who are you going to see? Do you know anyone here? Do you plan to enter the West Bank? You are from Gaza. We know that you've been here 17 years ago. Are you in touch with any of your relatives there? We need to look through your phone, etc., etc., etc. I was out by 12:15. I was left hanging in the waiting room until just before 4 o'clock with no communication. I was the last to leave the terminal. Now, this is part of a psychological warfare to deter any Palestinian with a foreign citizenship from a friend country from thinking that they might have easy access to their homeland. It serves as a constant reminder that in the eyes of the Zionists, all Palestinians are equal. Now, that's my experience. I'm sure here that a lot of you in the crowd here had similar experiences. It does not come close or compare to what the Palestinians living in the occupied Palestinian land go through on a daily basis. I do have friends in Jerusalem, the West Bank, the land occupied in 48 and Gaza. The horror stories we hear about their struggle and suffering to live a normal life is simply mind-boggling. A lot of what we take for granted, some would rarely experience in a lifetime. Palestine is the only nation in the world, as far as I know, that does not have, or is actually not allowed to, have an airport, a seaport, or even have control on the land borders exit. I was recently reading and learned that in early 2023 there was a documented 565 movement obstacles in the West Bank alone. Just imagine the effect that it had on the daily life of the ordinary Palestinians trying to go about their lives. Students, workers, doctors, patients, you name it. There are approximately 9,000 Palestinian hostages held in the Zionist regime prisons. Why don't we hear the world speaking about them? Are they less human than any of us? Shame. I am a specialist dentist and a casual lecturer at the university. I used to work in head and neck unit, rehabilitating cancer and trauma patients as part of an amazing team of surgeons, dentists, and other specialists. We provided care for everyone, regardless of their ethnicity, religion, age. Hospitals are places for treatment and healing. I often wonder what would happen to our patients if we were to suddenly disappear, die, or simply flee. We often hear the notion that X amount of numbers have been killed. What about patients who lost access to doctors? What about patients who lost access to life-saving medications, equipment, procedures, etc., etc.? Brothers and sisters, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We know that these are difficult and trying times, but we also know that the blood of the martyrs is not going to go to waste. Liberation is near, and it is happening in our lifetime. The Zionist bet is as one of their leaders once put it, the old will die and the young will forget. Well, I'll tell you what, the old did not die until they instilled the love of the land in our hearts. As for the young, we see our beautiful youth leading the chants here. My two-year-old niece can barely articulate a full sentence. She's been attending the protests and now she goes home every Sunday, raises her fist up and says, "Free, free Palestine." I will end on this note. بلادنا إلنا من البحر للنهر. Our land is ours, from the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. Thank you.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Come there, come closer. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And when I say from the belly of the beast, you say, we want justice, we want peace. From the belly of the beast, we want justice, we want peace. From the belly of the beast, we want justice, we want peace. We have a wonderful, amazing speaker coming up. A true ally to the Palestinians. Someone who has been amplifying the voices of Palestinians throughout every single rally for the past 197 days. Someone who knows what true solidarity and allyship means. Listen to Palestinians, believe Palestinians, and amplify the voices of Palestinians always. Now our wonderful speaker is Mercedes Zanker. She's a member of the Ring of activists who work on anti-military campaigns and undertake research on weapons companies, and we all know a lot about weapons companies. She's a part of Ringate Solidarity Audio Force, the crew who provide the sound at rallies and actions here in NARM. Welcome Mercedes to the stage, everyone. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
From its very inception, Australia has profited of genocide. The theft, the displacement, the murder and exploitation of First Nations people for 236 years of colonisation is how Australia has generated all of its stolen wealth. Across this continent, there are First Nations people whose countries and communities are becoming and have become unlivable because of the incursions of the military, mining, resource extraction, and successive policies that have geared their displacement. The defunding of communities, under-resourcing of health, education, and youth programs is rife and very deliberate. And just as Australia is aiding and abetting, and in the same way, Australia is aiding and abetting the genocide in Gaza, and it is calculated and deliberate. There's not enough money, says the government, but there's enough government money to give to Nioa. Nioa Munitions is an Australian-based company that makes the guns and the bullets for all state and territory police. The same company, Nioa, make the Barrett MRAD sniper rifles that are being used to murder civilians in Gaza. Since October last year, Nioa have received $268 million from the Department of Defence. Nioa, in partnership with Rheinmetall, manufacture some of their weapons in Benalla, in northern Victoria, a small country town a couple of hours from here and really close to where I grew up. So right next door to that company, Nioa and Rheinmetall, that operates out of a government-owned building, is Thales. And Thales, with the same help from the Australian government, made the Bushmaster combat vehicle that is used against civilians in West Papua. Boeing, the third largest arms dealer in the world in Port Melbourne, since October has received $833 million in government defence contracts. Boeing made the F-15, the Apache attack helicopters, and the JDAM bombs that are being used in Gaza right now. The Australian government is using the tax dollars to fund a genocide here, and then has the gall to boast about exporting that genocide to Palestine, to West Papua, and to the Congo, where companies are profiting from the brutal extraction of resources. Australia has a long history of exporting its genocide. Many of the mechanisms of genocide used by the Commonwealth forces against First Nations people here were utilised in South Africa during its apartheid era. South Africa, who are now leading the proceedings to hold Israel accountable for its war crimes. And true to Australia's legacy, the exportation of genocide to apartheid South Africa continues now today. Just a few weeks ago, Anthony Albanese, with Defence Industry Minister Pat Conroy at his side, was on the factory floor of Rheinmetall in Redbank in Queensland. Rheinmetall were the third largest supplier of weapons to the Nazis. They have always profited from death and mass slaughter, and they continue that today in Gaza. From that very same factory floor a couple of weeks ago, Albanese shed some crocodile tears for the aid workers murdered by the IOF, one of whom was Zomi Frankum. The missile that was fired from the Albert Systems Hermes 450 unmanned aerial vehicle was a Rafale Spike missile. That drone is made by the same company that the Albanese government has just announced its $917 million contract for. It's the same drone and missile that has murdered and maimed tens of thousands of Palestinians, like when the IOF stalked and killed Atta Mohammed Atal al-Bayyouk, Yazid Mohammed Yusuf al-Bayyouk, Ahmed Salah al-Najjar, and Saeed Salah al-Najjar, as they were attempting to reach their destroyed homes in Khan Yunis. But we see the dishonourable Prime Minister shed no tears for them. The dishonourable Prime Minister only carries their blood on his hands. On that same factory floor, and taking from the Hasbara playbook, Albanese claimed that the killing of aid workers shouldn't have happened. But within a few short minutes, he was on that factory floor celebrating Australia's largest defence export in history, in partnership with Rheinmetall for the Boxer Combat Reconnaissance Vehicle. The Boxer Combat Reconnaissance Vehicle will also be armed by Rafale's Spike missile system, the same system that is being used to murder and maim Palestinians. These missiles, called the Spike LR2 missiles, will be manufactured by a joint venture between Australian company Varley and Israel's third largest weapons company, Rafael. They've also got the contract to build the Spike missiles for the Australian Defence Force arsenal, which will be tested near Woomera on Aboriginal land affecting the communities on Gokatha country. It has been estimated that it will cost just shy of $90 billion to lift every person in Australia above the poverty. The government or economically unsound to have people to be able to survive. And sure, $90 million is an incomprehensible amount of money for folks like you and me, but in the 2022-23 financial year, which are the latest figures that we have access to, the money spent on defence daily equated to $133,423,835.69 every single day. The Australian government is actively giving a lifeline to genocide. And while the government cries foul about spending too much money to lift people out of the poverty line or to make sure that they have access to healthcare or dental, just 4 days ago, the Albanese government boasted about its $785 billion defence spending portfolio. When we heard Hiba talking about how there is no access in Sudan to healthcare, we see people here in Australia with no access to healthcare, where every single hospital in Gaza has been destroyed and funded by the Australian government to be destroyed. We need to think about what that $785 billion of taxpayer money could do. Money taken from workers, it's laundered by the government and dished out to their mates, the merchants of death, those who profit off death and destruction and make a killing from killing. The new Footscray Hospital, due for completion next year, was a $1.5 billion investment by the state government. If the government were to invest the same amount of money into hospitals than it is into defence, it could build 523 new public hospitals. This is a stark and horrific comparative reality that the government is aiding and abetting the destruction of every single hospital in Gaza. No hospital, no school, no university, no home, nor family have been spared by Israel assaults. It is our collective and moral and legal imperative to do every single thing in our power together to stop arming Israel, to directly target the war machine and bring an end to genocide. If we want to directly support Palestinians right now, we have to cut off the lifelines that are assisting the genocide. The lifelines to the death machine, the Australian government and the arms companies. And whatever it takes is what we must do together. Because the people united will never be defeated. United will never be defeated. And there is only one solution. Intifada revolution. Absolutely brilliant. Another round of applause for the amazing resistance. The involvement of the military-industrial complex in every aspect of life, here and elsewhere, is sickening and disgusting. Melbourne University alone has more than $300 million of defense research with the Australian Defense Department. They have partnerships and ties with the world's largest weapons manufacturers, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, BAE Systems, Rosebank Engineering, producing components for the F-35 fighter jets bothering Palestinians right now. We need to understand that all of us have to stand
and systems and institutions that are profiting off of the murder and slaughter of Palestinians. All of them. And I cannot forget to mention the amazing students of Columbia University. Students for justice. Let's give them a round of applause here from Melbourne. They have shown us what true resistance in the face of oppressive colonial institutions is. They have been defying and challenging their university for the past week, not leaving the grounds of the university. More than 100 students have been arrested, more than 50 students have been expelled, and yet they insist. We say disclose, divest. We won't stop. We won't rest. Disclose, divest. We won't stop. We won't rest. Disclose, divest. We won't stop. We won't rest. Disclose, divest. And the same call goes to every single university here and to the Australian government. We will not stop until you disclose and you divest and you stop your complicity in the genocide of our people. Now, we're about to wrap up. We have the amazing Asid. She does not need an introduction. She's a Palestinian activist and artist. Please welcome Asid to the stage and let's hear her singing and being the voice of resistance of the Palestinians.
Assalamu alaikum, Melbourne. I missed you all. I haven't been here for a while, so I wouldn't be in Melbourne and you don't see my face, I promise. But I have been introducing so many people today to my sister-in-law and say there's nothing like the protests in Melbourne. And I tell you, I have been a lot around the world and there's nothing like you guys. So thank you very much for showing up. As a Palestinian, we have been, as a Muslim, we have just had Eid after Ramadan, and as a Muslim, I always say Eid Mubarak. But as Palestinians, we have always been singing, قالوا إجا العيد, they said Eid is here. قلنا العيد لأصحابه, we said Eid is for those who celebrate it. شو بينفع العيد للي مفارق أحبابه? What is Eid for those who are away from their people? العيد يا يما لما بلادنا بتعود. Eid, my mom, is when our land is back. ونرجع على أرض الوطن, and we're back to our homeland. ونبوس تراب وأنكس الصويا. قالوا إجا العيد, قالوا إجا العيد, قلنا العيد لأصحابه. شو بينفع العيد للفارق أحبابه؟ قالوا إجا العيد, قالوا إجا العيد, قلنا العيد لأصحابه. شو بينفع العيد للي مفارق أحبابه؟ العيد يا يما, العيد يا يما, العيد يا يما, لما بلادنا بتعود ونرجع أرض الوطن, ونرجع أرض الوطن, ونرجع أرض الوطن, ونبوس ترابه. جنة 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 يا وطننا, جنة 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 يا وطننا, يا وطن يا حبيبي, يا بتراب الطيب, حتى نارك, حتى نارك جنة, حتى نارك, حتى نارك. دوري 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 يا نوارس, دوري 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 يا نوارس, دوري حتى شوك بلادي يا سمين وجوري, حتى شوك بلادي يا سمين وجوري. جنة جنة I would like you to say with me, Hela Hela, okay? And it's about holding together. Hold up, hold on, we are here for you, we are singing for you, we are chanting for you, we are standing every week in the last hundreds of years, like days, and in the last 70-something years, 5 years, and more than 100 years actually, if we count more than the occupation of Israel. We have been handing and holding on and fighting. So this song, I would like you to sing. I know it's in Arabic, but I would like to say with me, Hela Hela. Great, I don't need to write. Hela Hela. Hela Hela. Cool. شد الهم قوية مركب ينده عالبحرية ويا بحرية هلا 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 لا شد الهم قوية مركب ينده عالبحرية ويا بحرية sing it all again. شد الهم قوي جرح بينده للحرية ويا بحرية. Come on, Melbourne, we need to get our voice all the way to Gaza. Are you ready? شد الهم قوي مركب ينده للحرية ويا بحرية هلا. Much better. Look, there's some strangers around us, يعني from overseas. We need to show them how good we are. طلع البحر بيبكي دمعي بيشكي القلب بيبكي ويا بحرية هلا هلا خلف القلعة ساحات الدنيا مطرحنا ويا بحرية هلا هلا هلا. آخر وحدة حبيبتي. One more? Come on, Dada, come on. I have been protesting for 5 weeks. I need to get it all out of my chest. If it was about her, she would keep me here all night, I know, but she has to wrap up. Okay, this one I love so much. It's called Ya Falastiniya wal Bundigani Ramaku. It's an Egyptian song. It's a song because my brother before spoke about Vietnam. We speak about all the wars before. So we, like the Sheikh Imam, have like said, this song is Ya Falastiniya, you Palestinians, Vietnam alaykum bishara. Look at what happens in Vietnam. You are next. So here we go. يا فلسطينية والبندقات رماكو والصهيونية تكتب حمامكو بحكاكو يا فلسطينية والبندقات رماكو والصهيونية تكتب حمامكو بحكاكو يا فلسطينية والبندقات. I can hear my voice out singing. Sorry. يا فلسطينية والبندقات رماكو يا فلسطينية والبندقات رماكو والصهيونية تقتل حمامكو بحداكو يا فلسطينية وانا بالدياكو حياكو قلبي بايديا وايديا تنزل معاكو على راس الحياة وتموت شريعة خوياكو. Can you slow down with the drums because I'm running with the song and I cannot really come up with you. يا فلسطينية والغربة طالت كفاية يا فلسطينية والغربة طالت كفاية والصحراء أمنت من اللاجئين والضحايا يا فلسطينية والغربة طالت كفاية والصحراء أمنت من اللاجئين أخلص. Thank you very much. No, that's her. يا فلسطيني يا بتنام عليك البشارة بالنصر طلع من تحت 100,000 غارة. يا فلسطيني يا بتنام عليك البشارة بالنصر طلع من تحت 100,000 غارة. والشمع والعا والأمريكان في الخسارة رجع الحرارة عقبال ما يحصل معاكو يا فلسطينية. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Asiya. You know you've been blessed that I don't have a nice singing voice. I would have taken more time for this. Okay, guys, we're about to wrap up. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. Our message to this Australian government is loud and clear. Stop arming Israel! Louder! Stop arming Israel! Stop arming Israel! Stop arming Israel! Stop arming Israel!
I just have one announcement to do. One of my friends and volunteers have given you an event for Eid, the streets of Jerusalem. It's not a celebration. It's a place where all Palestinians are coming, friends or families that have been just recently arrived. It's a space for us to know what Jerusalem and the streets of Jerusalem really feels like. So I would love you to come if you can and share it around. If you got one of these, take a photo and send it to people. It's next Saturday, 27th of April, and it's in Narwhal. I know it's far, but it's worth the trouble. I know that you have all been holding the soul of the soul, so we have made 2 puppets of Reem and Uncle to kind of say that our stories should live forever. Thank you very much.
Now, just a few announcements again. On May 12th, we're going to have the Nakba rally. Remember, May 12th, show up in your thousands. Bring your friends, bring your families. We cannot afford to be silent while this genocide continues against the children, innocent men and women of Palestine. Now, Amin has a QR code. You can look at him. He has a QR code for the BDS motion. Please scan the QR code and see if your super is complicit in the genocide of the Palestinian people. And if they are, send emails, demand them to divest from the death industry. Okay. Thank you, everyone. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. In our thousands, in our millions. In our thousands, in our millions. Thank you to the entrepreneurs. Thank you to everyone who made today's rally possible. Thank you, renegades. Thank you, marshals. And please, if you see in yourself that you can be a marshal, please approach marshals with yellow tags. We need more marshals. Thank you.
That's it for today. Thanks for following.